This is Lee, and again, I've got Barbara with me today, and we're going to be talking a little bit about money beliefs for you as well. Because I don't know about you, but at times, I have these beliefs around money that could be holding me back as well. So, Barb, say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be here. Lee, thanks so much for having me on. I'm excited to have a conversation around money.
Absolutely. It's a topic that what I found when I was growing up, it's a topic that, it was taboo. It was like, sex, religion, and money, it was really taboo. And I remember that my dad used to come home and he was a waterside worker. Now I'm showing my age a bit here as well. And my dad used to get paid in a thing called cash. And he used to get paid in a little envelope, like a little pay envelope. And he would take it home and he would automatically, without even opening the envelope, he'd pass it to my mum. So my mum was the financial consultant in the family, but they never spoke about money. And when I was going to school, I remember the only thing about money that I was exposed to was I got a little Commonwealth passport, banking little, like in those days, you used to go to a teller and you
That's right.
put money into your bank and that was it. And that was all I was told. And often I started wondering about sometimes my own limitations around money as well. What was your first experience around money, Barbara, when you were growing up?
Um, well, my first experience was, my dad was a working dad. My mom stayed at home and raised us children. And I witnessed my mom not having a lot of self-esteem around money because she never made her own money.
Yeah.
And would have to ask my dad for, whatever she needed, and he would begrudgingly give it to her.
Yeah.
And we would get our 25-cent allowance, 10 cents, 25-cent allowance. Once a week, we would go to the mall. Dad would take mom shopping, and then we'd get the run of the mall. Back in the day, it was like a tiny little mall. I would get a malted milk ice cream. And that was really my first experience with money, in that, we raised our own vegetables, we raised our own animals, and we had to work and sell things to gain money. So I was always looking for pop bottles and selling pumpkins on the side of the street. And so I always grew up with the belief that you had to work hard for your money.
Yeah, me too. I remember the old days under my grandma's house. I used to crawl under the house, and for some reason we used to find bottles under the house. I don't know why, but we did. We found bottles under the house, and we would go to the local shop as kids. With no shoes on, barefoot. We'd go to the shop, walk up the shops, and we'd get our little bag of lollies and things like that. And we thought it was Christmas kind of thing as well. But I
That's
think
right.
with money, there's two aspects to money that is really important. One is the how we manage the money, and the other thing is beliefs as first. Now, I know that this is a topic that you specialize in, Barbara. So I'm going to pass the ball to you about. Tell us a little bit about managing money. What are some ideas and how you are able to help women and men being able to manage their money more effectively.
No, exactly. And it's important that we take time out to manage our money, to have systems in place, have plans in place. And one of the most powerful, well, there's a couple of really powerful things that you can do to manage money is, one, pay yourself first. So
Mm.
when you get your paycheck, the first thing you can do is take 10% or whatever you feel comfortable with and put it away, put it in a savings account. So it's out of sight, out of mind. If you don't do that, by the end of the day, when you pay all your bills and your rent or your mortgage and all that, there's not going to be anything left. It
And,
just
and,
seems to
and
disappear.
absolutely, and that's one thing I think entrepreneurs don't do. I
No.
think a lot of entrepreneurs don't pay ourselves, and then what happens when we're not, actually, having that money for those small baby steps that we make and those small successes that we make throughout the entrepreneur journey. That's where that we start to actually feel burnt out and run down as well. But
That's
good
right.
point. That yeah,
That's
good
right.
point.
I think it's really important to have boundaries.
Mm,
I've worked, I don't know, 25 years in the financial industry as an employee. and burned out I don't know how many times. And when I left, I decided to build my business around the lifestyle that I wanted for myself and my family, and the feeling that it gave me. So I never wanted to be in that grind mentality or that hustle mentality that you see women say, what's your side hustle? You have to work, 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 work. You have to do all these things. And I'm like, no, you don't.
It's all about being smarter. So,
Mm-hmm.
so the first thing we should do is, everyone out there, we should pay ourselves. We're worth invest money in, and 10% is the figure. Yeah,
that's right. At minimum.
As a minimum. And what's another management tip, Barb, besides that?
All right. So the next one would be to live within your means. You most likely heard of this before, but if you make, $2,000 a month or $5,000 a month or $10,000 a month, make sure you don't spend more than that a month. So know what money is going out the door. How many of us have gym memberships, or memberships seem to be a big thing these days that we don't take part in, that we don't use, that are just being wasted away. So it could be $20 a month, $50 a month, $100 a month. Well, cancel those memberships if you're not using them, or use them to monetize and put that away as well. But live within your means.
And that's something that's really important, is that it's important to be aware of your money, to be checking your bank balance, to be consciously, looking after your money and knowing where you're at. Because lots of times people just, because we don't get paid cash anymore, and we have those credit cards that we don't even actually realize how much money that we're spending, and it adds up, and there's no conscious awareness of what's going on as well.
So true. And I think one of the biggest mistakes, if you're not an entrepreneur, is your audience is mostly entrepreneur?
Mostly entrepreneur. I do have a lot of women also in corporate as well. So there's a mixture with my audience, you guys out there. So we're actually at the moment, we're streaming to LinkedIn, as well as we're also streaming to Facebook out there as well.
Oh, so, great.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Have a bit of a mixture. But I think everything that we talk about, it's about you putting it into the area that's most important for you.
That's right.
So the same principles apply within an entrepreneur as someone in the workplace. Because today, when we're in the workplace, a good way to approach our positions in our workplace is though it's our own business as well. Right. And instead of having our clients, like usually in entrepreneur, we talk about clients, we talk about customers, but as leaders within business, it's important to see your team members as valuable as if they were your client, and actually serve them as though they're actually your clients as well. So I think it's a big shift that's happening in corporates now, realizing that, obviously the entrepreneurs can use some skill sets from the corporate, such as, leadership. And because a lot of entrepreneurs, they lack the foresight in developing their dream team. Once they have their dream team on board, unless they've, led people before, they've managed people before, sometimes let them down. But the corporate area as well, they can learn from the entrepreneurs by their attitude of, we've got to perform first before we get paid. And that's sort of as well as high performance. So I love the mixture that I bring together by bringing both my entrepreneurs and my women in leadership together. So we have those different conversations and different perspectives as well.
That's so right. And
and
I was just going to suggest then, whether you're an entrepreneur or maybe have a spouse that's if you're working for a company, or you have a spouse that's working for a company, one of the most overlooked items is take advantage of the corporate stock plans, take advantage of the corporate retirement savings program, because if they will match you or put in 20%, if you put in 100, they'll put in 20. Take full advantage of that savings program. Few companies have these types of programs these days, but if they do, take advantage of that.
And that's one thing a lot of entrepreneurs don't do, and that is because it's about having a super fund, because a lot of entrepreneurs don't have a super fund. So that when, if their business isn't going well or something happens in their business as they retire, they're not forced to have that super fund. Whereas an employee within the workplace, of course, the company pays a percentage of their wage immediately into the super. And so it happens automatically without them even seeing it as well. So maybe an entrepreneur can start looking at doing that same thing, of putting away the same percentage as what the corporate pays their team members into some sort of super fund as well. What are your thoughts about that, Barbara? Yeah.
I agree. If there's one thing that COVID and the pandemic has taught me and probably many others out there, and I comment if you can relate to this, if you're on watching us live, is that you can never predict when the next thing's going to be that's going to knock you off your feet. So you might get sick, you might lose a job. Pandemic might shut you down. Make sure you have money set aside to survive 3 to 6 months. We've been lucky here in Canada anyways that we've had government support, but I didn't, thankfully I didn't need it myself, but or have access to a line of credit, as long as you're responsible for it, a low interest line of credit that you can access in an emergency. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are your thoughts around, today we're moving, our society, we're moving more into pay later, like, in Australia, because I know that you're in Canada, Barbara, but in Australia, we have things like Afterpay and everything now. Today, we're really looking as a society of, getting everything that we want immediately and then paying later for it. What are your thoughts around that, as far as how that could escalate if we're not managing that process very well effectively?
It can be a disaster, really. At the end of the day, we're in this throwaway society, a materialistic society. And when you are confronted with an emergency or a lack of funds, and you've got all this debt that you have to pay back, you quickly realize that the top of the line TVs, sorry husbands out there, but the top of the line TV and stereos and couches and cars and toys, they mean nothing. They mean nothing. And that being able to feel safe and comfortable and stable is more important than having a glossy TV or, a $300 pair of shoes or what, I don't know. I wear bare feet all day, every day these days because I don't go anywhere. So that's, to me, I'm all about having an amazing experience and feeling good, not about having what's shiny and new. Maybe that's my age. I don't know, but
I think it is depending on age, because I was always brought up with my dad. My dad used to always say to me, never go in the credit. If you can't afford it, then you don't get it, kind of thing. You know what I mean? And I've got to admit, I'm very much like that now. I look at what I really need and not what I want. Like I may want to, I may see a really nice LD or a beautiful car or whatever. I may want that, but I don't really need that. I just need to have a motor vehicle that's reliable, that's going to take me to point A and point B. And the fact is too, I don't know about you, Barbara, and maybe some people watching out there, I want to have a stress-free lifestyle. And if you've got a financial issue and you're stressing about, can you pay the next bill or whatever, I don't want to live in that. I don't want to live in that stress. I want to have it stress-free. Now, with money as well, I mean, obviously, we do a lot of things unconsciously around our beliefs around money as well. And often, obviously I do a lot of coaching, and I coach, a lot of women and men as well. But I really listen to the conversation and I listen to the words that they use. And often if you listen really carefully to yourself or other people around you, you'll start to hear their limiting beliefs. And I had one client and we were chatting and we were just talking about, this person was really upset, and we were talking about her going for a career promotion with someone in the career area. And I sent away a form about, some questions I asking her and things like that around promotion thing as well. And I noticed that one of the responses that she put on the piece of paper was, I don't want to live in poverty. I'm afraid of living in poverty. Now, immediately that tells me straight away that she hasn't got a good relationship with money, because the way that she faced it as well. What are your thoughts around beliefs? Do you sort of start to look at beliefs as well as some great strategies of handling money as well, Barbara?
Yeah, and beliefs, our limiting beliefs do run unconsciously. Where you're at in your life is a direct relation to what you're thinking, how you're feeling, what you believe in. And those beliefs typically start when we're children. And we get those beliefs from our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents, our teachers, TV, media. And if we've taken it in before we have any form of conscious ability to question things, then we're going to believe that money's evil, or you have to work hard for your money, or money makes mom and dad fight. And maybe you were the cause of the fight because you got a new dress or a new pair of shoes, and dad's mad because there's not as much money for groceries that week, and mom went on a splurge and shouldn't have. So as little people, we have no way of knowing whether that's true or not true. We just take it all in as our truth. And so our unconscious mind holds that in a way that it looks for ways to prove that that's true for us. And so it's like our radar. If we believe we're not enough or we're not worth it, then we're going to look for experiences that prove that.
Absolutely. And I know for me, as far as coaching world, I can always tell when someone has a limiting belief around money or anything else, not just by the language, but have you ever experienced, we call it the roller coaster ride, up and down. You think about a roller coaster ride. And what happens is sometimes you may have a invisible glass ceiling around how much money that you can actually save, for example, right? So this is often talked about move to and move away values. And one of those examples, say if I'm afraid of money and my bank balance gets to below a certain figure. So I may be really stressed out if my bank balance is less, say, for example, than $5,000, right? So if my bank balance is less than $5,000 for me, and it could be different for you because everyone's different, you have different level. So when I reach, say, below $5,000, I go, oh my God, we've got to be responsible. I've got to start looking at my money. I've got to start doing things better. I better start doing things. And then I'm really happy, and my bank balance then may have a glass ceiling of getting to $10,000. And as soon as I get to $10,000, I go, sure, thank God that's finished. And then I start spending, and I'm irresponsible again until I hit $5,000 again. And then
That's right.
Yo-yo, because my relationship isn't, and I think because I could be in the back of my mind going, I'm scared of poverty, or I'm scared of being broke. So I have that up and down. But if I change my thoughts to financial freedom or something differently, then I break through that ceiling as well. So if you find you've got this invisible ceiling, like, one could be here, one could be here kind of thing, and you're in between up and down all the time, maybe you've got to sit down and look at your beliefs. And that's just a sign from a coaching perspective that I can tell with someone around money as well. Have you ever experienced that yourself as well, Barbara, or noticed that with your clients?
Oh yeah, for sure. There's one story where I did a money breakthrough for a fellow, and he was consistently, no matter what, throughout the years, always in debt by about $30,000. Just at that level where he didn't feel comfortable or safe and secure financially. And after we were done, he realized that he went and saw his grandmother in the hospital because she wasn't well after our breakthrough session. And the first thing she said to him was, oh, hi, so-and-so. I'm not obviously going to say a name. Oh, poor person, oh, my poor boy, my poor boy. And he, internalized that he was poor.
Yeah.
And when he finally went, oh my God, that's where that came from, he could
Yeah.
let it go because he realized that wasn't true. And so he turned things around very quickly after
Mm,
that. And,
yeah.
and then I can say too, whether you don't have money or you have a lot of money, you can still have a lot of hangups with the idea of money and your self-esteem around that.
Sure. And let's look also how do you approach your partner around money, because that's something I think is really important. So give us some tips, or what's your point of view of how can you bring the topic up and actually approach it with your partner, because that, I believe, that's where a lot of stress happens, and that's where relationships start to flounder a bit at times around money. So if you had someone coming to you and they got different value systems, for example,
Mm-hmm.
like you might have one person who wants to shop till they drop, that's their value system, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what they love doing. And then you've got a partner who's completely opposite. They're the thrifty, the person who doesn't spend any money at all. How do you approach that with couples and partners and things like that, Barbara? Yeah.
Yeah, those are all really good questions, Lee, and very carefully.
Very
I
careful.
don't mean to laugh. I don't mean to laugh because,
No.
I feel that you need to talk openly to your partner around your values around wealth and money. You have to
Mm.
have common goals, financial goals in place, and to know that your husband or your wife, the topic of money and the conversation around that might trigger emotions,
Mm.
traumas, memories that are not comfortable. So if they freeze you out or if they get heated, no, it's not about you. Know that it's just brought up something in them that needs to be healed. But
Mm.
I think it's important to make sure that you both are on page for keeping your budget, keeping your household running. But I think you also need to take individual responsibility for looking after yourself. So having a separate bank account. I don't know
Mm.
how many times where women have come to me in particular, because that's usually what I work with, where, they're going through a divorce and they haven't a clue.
Yeah. Yeah.
The husband's done everything and they've just said, well, he feels good about it, I want to make him feel good. In the meantime,
Mm.
he's mismanaged the money. And I'm sure it could happen on the other side of the coin as well. But
Yeah.
and having counseling or having somebody that you're both comfortable with talking and mediating often can be an important step as well.
Yeah, and it may, and this is where I think it takes several conversations.
Yes.
It's both parties not being afraid to talk about topics like money and things like that. It's okay to talk about
That's right.
those topics, and of course then that will trigger different beliefs and things like that. So I suppose it's just what you said, is carefully and being patient and having a lot of conversations and trying to be able to set boundaries that will actually help both parties as well. Being able to, I suppose, that compromise, which is really important as well. And this is about expectations and boundary setting, which are often not spoken about either,
That's
because
right.
a lot of times people don't like to have difficult conversations either. So it can be a catch-22, but it's about being very open and understanding that if your partner closes down when they talk about money, that it's still a topic that you need to still pursue kindly and gently with that person, and go a bit deeper, because there's obviously deeper reasons around that as well. That's a core thing as well. But seeking those, as you said, Barb, seeking those, as counsellors or a third party that can actually it's not emotionally involved with the conversation can help. And this is where it comes in the power of having coaches and counsellors and and psychologists and people around to support you, because they mediate that process as well.
That's right. And even finding a financial planner or a financial
Yeah.
advisor who speaks to you equally. Not, I know there's a lot in my financial planning industry. there's a lot of awareness now around being inclusive and talking a couple, the woman and the man together, and drawing out what each of them want to achieve financially versus the days where it was really very masculine and male dominated.
Yeah.
And I feel that's one of the things that was my strength, working with couples, is that I would ensure that when I met somebody new, I was always drawing in the woman and the man equally into the conversation. And believe it or not, women make the decision.
Absolutely. We all know as entrepreneurs that the women will actually make the buying decision.
That's right.
The men may think they do, but the women really do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, it's not something to be afraid of or feel less than about. Money is neutral. It's a currency, it's an energy. It goes out, it comes in. And the more comfortable you are with it and you change the way you see it and think about it, your life will change. And I know you know this, Lee, is what you focus on, you get. So focus on what you want to achieve and how you want to feel versus the lack thereof.
Sure. And I think it's about, if you've got a partner, sitting down and having a conversation around financial goals. That's right. And really, as we've talked about during this conversation, it's understanding, you're spending time to get to understand each other so that you can actually, communicate the importance. Because at the end of the day, if you're with a partner, the reason why you're there is to make each other, support each other, and to make each other happy and have that joy in your life as well. So it's one of those conversations that need to be said as well. So we've got some tips here that you've mentioned already. So we know that we should be paying ourselves first, at least 10% into a different account, and that account can be used, for either retirement, or it can be used for a holiday or something to give you self-care because you work really hard as well. We also talked a little bit, about, the beliefs that if you listen really carefully, you'll actually hear the conversation of what's going on, between parties as well. So you're actually listening to the beliefs around money and setting boundaries in relationships as well. What are some more, and also to monitor your bank accounts and seeing, have you got memberships that you should be looking at closing down if you're not using it. I know I did that myself recently. I was joined a gym, but I just couldn't get inspired with going to a gym. I just wasn't using it. And I tried hard to go, and I just thought it was costing me, $75 a month to go to the gym. But when you multiply it by 12, that's, $800, $900, because what's happening now, a lot of times we pay memberships per month and we go, oh, it's only $35 a month or whatever. But I know a wise mentor of mine in business said that you should always look at a yearly investment. So by the time you multiply it out, you go, oh gosh, it's $300 or $400 or $500 that I'm spending on this membership that I'm not using as well. True. So it's really interesting as well. And what are some more financial tips, actual tips as well before we go today that you can actually leave our audience as well, Barbara? Yeah.
I think it's really important to make your money work harder than you do. And what I mean by that is any money that you can safely put away for a long period of time. And we all know interest rates are, at the bottom, if not negative these days against inflation, is invest a little bit every month into something long-term, whether it's a stock or a mutual fund of some sort. Get your advisor to give you some good ideas of what suits your risk tolerance and your objectives. But, if you can earn 5-6% on average over the years, that money's going to grow beautifully for you. And that would be for your long-term serious money. Have that money work harder than you do. And eventually, you won't have to work. Also, too, look at where you can create passive income. Money that comes in regardless of what you're doing.
And that's what I love about being an entrepreneur. We're all about not exchanging time for money. So that's one of the advantages of being an entrepreneur is that you can create that passive income by running courses in the background and things like that as well. For the person who's working within their office, there's absolutely nothing stopping you for having a hobby on the part-time that you can do as well to make some money as well.
That's right.
Barbara, who are your mentors that you follow around money? Who's like, for example, I always loved Robert Kiyosaki when I was growing up, about what was how to use your money in a more productive way than being a passive way and things like that. Have you got any specific mentors that you follow yourself?
Well, I've been in the industry for 35 years, so a lot of knowledge. I don't necessarily follow anybody in particular around money. I love listening to some different analysts because I'm in the investment industry, so I like to understand where the economy's at, things like that. But I really love Lynn Twist's book called Soul of Money.
Nice.
Yeah, which she's beautiful around that. So where we're coming from lack and we need more, and if we need more, when is more ever enough? And so it's just a cycle we're always in. Who else? Oh my God, you put me on the spot here. Money. Yeah, you know what? I think just because I'm so steeped in it, I don't really necessarily follow anybody in particular. I've had many of my girlfriends and community tell me that it's time that I wrote a book, that we need somebody from a female perspective write something on money that not is just practical, but also involves the energy of money and the mindset of money and things like that, and some practical steps there.
And because we live in a society, money is important. I know a lot of people, especially when I first started coaching, it was like, I'm not interested in money. I just want to help impact the world and everything else as well. But if you haven't got money and you're living in a society where you need money because we all need to pay, rent or a mortgage, or we're living in a society that's money driven. If you've got no money, you can't fill your car up with petrol. And things like that. You're limited, in this world. So it's important to be in a relationship with money, because we live in a world that is determined by money as well. And of course, we're talking about as well during our conversation today, we're talking about, living within your means. That's something, I think that's the key to anything. But also, as you were saying, Barb, to have those long-term goals where you've got that compound interest happenings on long term, so you do have that nest egg, you have that money, because you never know. Entrepreneurs sometimes, if we get sick, especially if we're a solo entrepreneur and we can't work, we need to have that money. But also in the workforce as well, if you're employed, in today's world, big companies, who knows what's going to happen? You may find yourself, in a position where there's a downturn or people being put off or whatever. So you need to have that money as well.
Yeah, and if you don't, then look at short-term disability plans. Look at somebody who can provide you with critical illness insurance, long-term care insurance, medical benefits, things like that. Most people think that, oh my God, that's so expensive, but not always. Things have changed, and things are always changing in the industry. So, if you were to break a leg and you couldn't do your work, there are short-term disability programs out there that aren't that much. May not be for the whole amount you might need every month, but it might be just enough to get you by.
Sure. And remember, have those conversations with your partner, and to have those goals, and not to be afraid to talk about money, because money is good and money is important. And the ways that charities survive and those big causes is because people donate lots of money to those with the excess as well. So I hope you've enjoyed today's conversation. I've certainly enjoyed chatting with you again, Barbara, today. And I look forward to seeing you again in our next conversation with my next co-host next week at the same time. So in the meantime, have an amazing day. And again, thank you so much, Barbara, for coming on board and being my co-host today.
Oh, you're welcome. It was great to be here, Lee. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Take care. Bye.